Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now it's been a little while since I did a Q&A video. Many of you do me the great honour of sending in questions to me in which you seek my avuncular advice. You try to tap into the knowledge and experience of my 55 years having served a decade in the military, more than 2 decades in law enforcement and all the other things which have gone, under the path as I go through life. And I am delighted to answer your questions. Throw in any question you have for me. I will always endeavour to pass some comment and try and help you with the advice that I have to give. And I'm just going to go straight into these and fire through them. This first question comes from Michael, who says, "Greetings, Ash. What are your thoughts on bolo ties? I know they're an American thing, oftentimes worn with Western wear. Would you wear one?" Michael. Well, Michael, sir, I like bolo ties, actually. I have had the good fortune of spending a fair bit of time in the southern states of America. Every year, for about 4 or 5 years, me and various friends of mine would fly over to Dallas, actually, pick up a hire car, and we would go on a drive around Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and those sort of areas in the southwest in December, because it was better weather there than here in the UK. And on my various trips around, I visited like rodeos, and I'm a huge fan, believe it or not, of country and Western music. So this is very much an area in which I found an attraction. And of course, I saw many folks wearing bolo ties when they were dressed up to go out for an evening in Texas, New Mexico, and so on, which are clearly parts of the US which have a strong leaning towards the Western styling. But that said, I like a bolo tie in appearance. I like the often the silver adornment or bit of turquoise or whatever they're normally decorated with. They bring an interesting eye-catching accessory to a gentleman's outfit. What I would say is I do not think they are a substitute for a necktie. Now, I know the bolo tie is the official neckwear of Texas, New Mexico and Arizona. So if you live in those states, go for it. But for me, like I say, they're not something I would wear in a business setting or a formal setting, unless you know, like a friend's wedding, and you know everybody's going to be dressed in the Western style. For me, it's something to wear. Now, in say, UK here, for instance, there is a current trend for men not to wear ties with a suit. They will go open-collared. For me, a bolo tie might be something you could slip in there instead of going open-collared, but not instead of a necktie. The necktie still brings something a lot more. It's formal, there's texture pattern, there's all sorts of things going on with a necktie, which I think a bolo doesn't present. But if you live in that part of America, I'd be all over it. I'd certainly be wearing one. Next question from Brian. Is Chap Nirvana available to people of different races, cultures, and backgrounds? Of course it is, right? Chap Nirvana, this ideological state which I talk about in my videos. I'm on my journey to Chap Nirvana. Chap Nirvana for me is a state of mind. It's an ultimate state of peace and bliss and contentedness in terms really of being a gentleman. So that is irrespective of what your background, your race, or whatever element of the world you come from. Chap Nirvana is open to you. And I make a pointed, effort to say to people, for me, a chap is a gentleman, right? It's just shorthand for saying gentleman. Chap Nirvana, gentleman's nirvana, gentleman's heaven. Many people, when they think of a gentleman, they'll think of a very austere gentleman, maybe wearing a bowler hat, maybe wearing a suit that's been bespoke made for him at Savile Row. His accessories come from Jermyn Street. They think of a man who's put together in a way which is very expensive. And I try to debunk that myth entirely. You can be a gentleman whether you have the most paltry budget or whether you have access to unlimited funds. It is a state of mind. It is mostly in your actions rather than your appearance. So absolutely, Chap Nirvana is open to each and every one of us who seek that path to enlightenment. So next question, Neil Christie, what are your thoughts on bodybuilding? that's a bit of a left of centre one. In my younger years, right, when I was in the military, as many people did back then, I partook of bodybuilding, right? It was a big thing in the 90s, and I was living in Germany for a number of years during that period, based overseas. And I used to go to a bodybuilding gym. I got heavily into the eating regime, the supplementation regime. I think bodybuilding is a good path to take. As I've grown older, I'm more interested in general all-round cardiovascular fitness, because for me, with my fitness and health goals, I would rather be sort of aerobically fit rather than have large hulking muscles, even though I acknowledge, you know, you have to be conscious of muscle wastage as one gets older. We know that our muscle mass decreases 1 to 2% per year as we grow older, so it's important to keep your muscles on there. But for me, bodybuilding, yeah, it's a great sport to engage in. It might alter the way the clothes fit on your body if you become a particularly large gentleman. But yeah, bodybuilding, why the hell not? As long as, and I say this with a big caveat here, right? As long as you don't take it to the extent that we're talking about using performance enhancement through narcotic supplementation, all right? You know what I'm saying? We're talking about steroids. That's the unhealthy element of bodybuilding. And often when we see competitive bodybuilders, what we are looking at people on stage in their fittest, what appear to be their fittest level, they're actually in a pretty dire state of health, often dehydrated, emaciated, pumped full of drugs, you know, like diuretics, which are really not good for you. So I would say bodybuilding, healthy, natural. When you take it to that competitive, maybe enhanced level, it's the opposite. Stay away from that. Next question from Scrambaba. What are your thoughts on the current fad of unapologetic casual swearing, including, but by no means limited to, hipsters and YouTube channels? Well, you will note on my channel that I rarely, if ever, actually use bad language, and you have never heard me in nearly 900 videos now, I believe, using what I would consider to be profane language, you know, dropping an F-bomb or something of that nature. And that's simply because of the image which I'm trying to project to you. I don't want to be a foul-mouthed yob whose only way of accentuating certain elements of my conversation can be achieved through using profanity. The man who swears casually, openly in conversation for me is the man who doesn't have the imagination or the vocabulary to use a more descriptive word in the place of that profanity. So for me, I try and avoid bad language, particularly where it's going to be witnessed by other people. All right, so I like you. I walk the streets, I hear people swearing commonly every other word as they walk down the street, speaking to people and in a way that it'll be overheard by others. It disgusts me, people who use that sort of language. It is unnecessary. Now, that is not to say that I am myself unaccustomed to profanity. All right, you know, I served in the military. I was a policeman. I heard language the like of which I would never repeat in front of you, being directed at me by people who were unhappy about something which I had to do to them, often involving handcuffs and the like. But, right, I would never debase myself by dropping to that level. Now, if we ever met in a pub and we knew each other well and we were having a rather hearty conversation in which I wanted to add extreme sort of accent to something I was telling you about, I might throw in a bit of bad language, but in very measured amounts and in very specific situations. I wouldn't use it as throwaway comments all the time, because when you do so, it loses its value, doesn't it? You listen to old recordings or television programs of people from the 40s and 50s, and they are so polite. And it sounds so wonderful to hear people greeting each other, say, "Oh, hello, sir, how are you?" It sounds old-fashioned, but to my ear, it is a tragedy that we have moved into an era where profanity is just commonly accepted, and on the television particularly. You know, bad language now is on pretty much every television program. And I, as I say, for me, it smacks of a lack of imagination and a lack of ability to use better descriptive words. Make that point. And as I say, you won't hear me using profanity on this channel because there's no place for it here. This is me on my journey to Chap Nirvana, and that doesn't entail extreme bad language. Next question. Dave Porter, are you considering any new career developments? Always, always considering new career developments. Now, there's nothing immediately in my future, but what I would say, I am always open-minded and broad-minded. If something crossed my path and I thought, I fancy that, I would go for it. Now, admittedly, right, I've retired from my full-time profession. I'm in receipt of a pension. So I've got a safety net so that if I take on new things and they don't work out for me, I can roll the dice and see what happens because I've always got financial stability. In your life, it might be a little different. You might be, firmly wedged into your career path because you're heading towards, a pensionable point or something. So you've got to stick it out. But for me, very open-minded. Now, at the moment, I'm not looking for work. I am content with my situation, both financially and creatively. I enjoy the work that I do here on YouTube, creating content for people to enjoy, using my avuncular advice to flavour people's life journey towards Chap Nirvana. I do a number of other things. I'm a professional speaker. I do after dinner speaking or speaking at conferences, things like that. I'm also a well-being trainer for a military charity. I travel around the country delivering training on behalf of a charity. Those things keep me fully engaged. But if one of those things fell away, like the charity work, for instance, if they decided to go in a different direction, try a new project, I'd go for something else. Always got to be fluid and light on your feet. The man who's not prepared to jump at an opportunity is the man who gets left behind. That's the way I look at it. Next question, also from Dave Porter. On a roll here, Dave. Do you have any eye on any new watches at any price point? That's a good question because you know what? For a long time, I haven't had it in my heart to watch any horological themed content on YouTube. I used to watch loads of YouTube channels about wristwatches. And you know what? Over the last 18 months, my interest in nice wristwatches has fizzled out entirely. I mean, I rarely change my own watch. I've got a little watch collection, no more than 5 or 6 pieces. But just this last year, I just haven't been bothered to swap my watches around. I used to, wear one day, wear another the next. I just can't be bothered. I've had this Rolex GMT on for about 4 months now. It's probably about time to change it for something else, actually. But I just seem to be unable to conjure enthusiasm for new wristwatches. I don't have my eye on any at the moment, and I'm totally done with Rolex, I gotta say. I mean, they are unimaginative offerings over the last few years. I mean, I looked at the Land Dweller when I was on holiday in Malta the other day. I saw it in the window. First time I'd seen it in the flesh, in the window of an authorised dealer in Valletta. And God, it looked so uninspiring. So, like the dead eye of a shark. It had no spark, no pizzazz to it. And I thought, who on earth is going to spend the sort of money they're asking for that watch for something which lacks any fizzle for me at all? If I was to be interested in any watch right now, I definitely, and I see this happening throughout the whole watch world at the moment, this enrapture to large, chunky utility watches is dead. I've watched a few videos lately in which the luxury watch market is plunging off a cliff, and people are now in their droves going back to more classically elegant, smaller sized watches, totally unlike what I'm wearing here now. Smaller pieces, more elegant pieces. I see Cartier on the rise. I recently, when I was on holiday in Qatar earlier in the year, tried on a Cartier Panthère in gold in the gentleman's size. I think they call it a medium. They don't have a large, but the medium is the larger. So absolutely glorious. Quartz, not automatic movement, but it's really about the aesthetics, I think. Now, for me, I don't care if it's an automatic movement. I like the idea of automatic movements, but it's what it looks like, what it does for me. Does it bring passion and joy? And at the moment, chunky, utility, dive-style watches, definitely not. I see the reason why brands like Tudor and the big producers of chunkier watches die in a death. So yeah, interesting to see. So sorry, answering your question, Dave, no. Nothing hovering up on the horizon for me right now, but if it was, it would be a smaller, more classically elegant piece. And to be frank, if I had the money, which I don't, by the way, it would be precious metal. I would be looking for gold, but that's not on my immediate future. So, Dressy Crooner asks, what are your thoughts on Ask Oki and his promotion of full-cut trousers and English drape cut suits? Ask Oki, or Oki, clearly a very distinctive styled gentleman who is an influencer and a bespoke and made-to-measure clothing provider. So when he makes his videos promoting the style of clothing, which he does in his own inimitable way, he's got a remarkable personality. You know, he's a force of nature, and I love watching his stuff. His breadth of knowledge about style and etiquette and clothing trends is encyclopedic. You know, I just can't help but to enjoy his videos. I don't necessarily love the styling of his clothing. I know he likes his trousers to be rather full cut, you know, very large, high-waisted. His coats somewhat longer in the drape. One would say it is not contemporary in style. It is somewhat vintage inspired, and hence somewhat old-fashioned. Now, he can pull it off. You know, he's a very slender fellow, athletic in appearance. Pretty much anything would look good on him, to be honest. But, you know, for many men, it's going to make them look a tad eccentric. Now, obviously, you know, his stuff is, I think he does made to measure, and he does some version of bespoke, which isn't, you know, you don't actually meet the cutter and go through a journey, because his stuff, I think it's like an online bespoke where he'll, you know, or his people will discover what your needs are, get you measured up, and then the items, the clothing itself is run up in tailoring shops in Japan, I believe. So it's offshoring, basically. You know, he offshores his manufacture, it comes back and it gets tinkered with, you know, for the final fit. Made to measure, kind of bespoke in a way. Yeah, top end prices, you know, I think he's shading just under 4,000 US dollars per garment. So it's going to be good stuff, but it's very unique and distinctive. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you look at Savile Row, for instance, Chittleborough and Morgan, Joe Morgan, many people would say one of the world's greatest living tailors right now, working on Savile Row. Very distinctive, very wide lapels, broad shoulders, nipping into a superhero appearance at the waist. Again, very, very distinctive. Very similar to what Ask Oki is trying to do with his stuff. Distinctive styling, but not for everyone. Not for me, I would say. I prefer to be a little more contemporary, because anything that makes me look outside the ordinary is not really where I look to be. I want to be the best dressed man in the room, but not because I'm wearing something which is unusual. I want to be wearing, you know, for me, it would typically be a single-breasted, two-button, notch lapel suit, right? That's what I wear most of the time. But I want to be the best dressed because it fits me the best, because it's well delivered, you know, it's well ironed, it's sharp, the material is spot on, not because the cut is slightly left of centre and a little bit unusual. But as regards to what Ask Oki is doing, he is advancing men's style, and I applaud him for it. And I enjoy watching his stuff, although his stuff is a little bit too niche for me. So, moving on, Ben Prout. Ash, what's your favourite time of day? Are you a morning bird or a night owl? It's a no-brainer for me. I'm a morning bird. I am up every morning at 6 a.m, often awake before that, go to bed fairly early. I'm in bed by 10:30 most nights, and that means I'm up feeling fresh. And I think an early riser is somebody who naturally has optimism about him, because you look at the world unfolding in front of you. The new dawn of each day, and it's actually the evening as I film this. The sun is going down right now, but I like it when the sun is rising. There's a fresh day to conquer in front of you. And my daily routine, I get up at 6:30, I go and have a wet shave, and I feel effervescent and ready to power on with the day. Each day is the birth of an opportunity for me, and that's the way I see it. As I say, you rarely find me awake at 11 o'clock at night. I'll be long gone by then, in bed, either reading or fast asleep, and that works for me. Last question from Ortho Paddy. How have your Veldskone boots and Trickers boots held up? Good question. Yes, you're right. In the last 18 months or so, I've taken on a new pair of Veldskone desert boots. So these are the original style desert boots, made in South Africa. Quite simple construction, really. Suede upper, composite sort of rubber style sole, very robust boots. I'm wearing a pair of Veldskone shoes right now, actually, a pair of the shoes which Veldskone sent me at the same time as the desert boots. I wore the desert boots pretty much all summertime, so when I come up here into the woods and I'm in a sort of environment where they're likely to have a bit of rough and tumble, I'll wear the Veldskones. I actually wear a pair of Sanders desert boots for day-to-day walking around in more smarter situations, but when I'm out really giving it to the boots, the Veldskones are the ones I wear. And you know what? They've absorbed everything I've sent in their direction. So they are going quite well. I mean, I think they have usurped Clark's original desert boots because they're cheaper. In fact, I think they're more comfortable and they may even prove to be harder wearing. So for me, Veldskone, they have replaced the Clark's desert boot in my collection. Trickers, well, I bought a pair of Trickers Malton boots. So this is like the, very similar to their iconic Stow boots, very similar in appearance. But the Malton has got a thick commando sole. It's got the sea shade, almost orange appearance, super thick leather. The leather is actually made from the hides of bull cattle, so it's thicker, it's more robust. The leather is older, so it's really solid stuff. You know, a pair of Trickers Maltons with the commando sole, you really do think to yourself, this is a pair of boots I could stomp my way out of zombie apocalypse with no trouble at all. I love them. Coming into my second full winter with the Trickers Malton, and I tell you what, I am a total convert to Trickers. You know, in my mind right now, if I'm looking to think about a new pair of footwear, my first thought is, do Trickers make something in this category? Because having been to the factory, having seen the way the staff make the footwear, having been to the leather library and seeing all their boats of leather, you know, all stacked up, different animals, different types of leather, you think to yourself, these are guys who know how to make great footwear. And actually, I think the prices are really approachable for a handmade elite quality bit of footwear. So for me, Trickers, my Trickers Maltons, they're at the beginning of like a 30-year journey with me. I'm sure of that. They might even see me out. I'm 55. Those boots might be the only pair of that type of boots I ever need again. I can see them lasting that long. But yeah, they feel like they're just getting broken in. Comfortable as hell, mind. You know, they're not difficult to break in, but they feel like they're really getting into their stride with, 18 months of wear. Clearly, I don't wear them in the summer. They're a winter boot, but fabulous, fabulous footwear. And a real, you wear Trickers, you won't go back. That's all I'll say to you. That's enough of the questions for today. Time for me to head in and enjoy this evening, even though I'm a bit of an early bird, as you now know. If you have any questions for me, drop it in. Send me an email. I'd be delighted to hear from you. If I can, if it's suitable, I'll make a whole video as a response for you. If you'd like to join me on my journey to Chap Nirvana, you can become one of my patrons. The link to my patron page is in the description box below this video. And on my patron pages, I make exclusive weekly content just for my patrons. Stuff you'll never see here, a little bit more behind the scenes and about my life in general and my journey to Chap Nirvana. If you want to get in on that, and you don't even have to pay for much of that, go and have a look at that. I'll see you there soon. Take care, folks.